Have your fantasy teams been struggling this year? Or perhaps you've been doing pretty well but want to put yourself over the top? Then make sure to visit our friends over at Finish First Fantasy Advisors. They are the premier one-on-one consulting firm that specializes in providing you with expert support to help guide you to the championship. You will be matched with one of their expert advisors to provide you with the season-long insight for your redraft, dynasty, or DFS formats. Their advisors will contact you weekly to answer all of your questions and provide you the needed information to get to the next level. Set up a free 15-minute consultation by emailing them at info@finishfirstfantasy.com or by visiting them at www.finishfirstfantasy.com. That's www.finishfirstfantasy.com. Hello and welcome again to another episode of the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast presented by Dr. Squatch Soaps. Get 20% off of orders of $20 or more when you order at drsquatch.com. When you use the promo code SKS20 at checkout. Again, that's 20% off of orders of $20 or more at drsquatch.com when you use the promo code SKS20 at checkout. So you guys know, I love Dr. Squatch soaps. I've actually got some in the shower. The black pine tar bar, which, I mean, if you're watching our YouTube video, you can actually see the picture of it kind of as part of our promo ad. Love the stuff. Smells awesome. So just so you know. Anyways, my name is Ryan Scullard. I am the host of the show. And tonight we're going to be going over some big news that obviously happens. We're going to look over some of the injuries that have taken place over the last couple days and some updates on some of those injuries. And then we are going to go over our Waiver-Wire Madness, waiver-wire pickups for Week 5 in the NFL. So there's and I'm also going to talk about a specific player that just so happened to go off tonight. So I'm going to brag a little bit about knowing what was going to happen, and then kind of give my thoughts on what to do with it going forward. So I believe that's it. So why don't we go ahead and get into today's headlines.
Today's headlines.
And today's headlines are brought to you by the Sleeper app, one of the best apps you are going to be able to find for getting notifications up to date about player updates, different things going on in the NFL. Unless you have actively followed and are following guys like Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garofalo, those kind of guys on ESPN and NFL. If you're following them on Twitter, you'll get the notifications maybe 30 seconds before when they show up on Sleeper. That's how fast these guys are at getting the information out to you. The only, again, like I said yesterday, the only downside of Sleeper is if you have a league on Sleeper, everyone gets those notifications all at the same time. So, again, there's pros and cons to everything. So, getting into the storylines, number one, big news of the day, Bob is gone. Bill O'Brien has officially been fired from the Houston Texans after a 0-4 start this season. The infamous DeAndre Hopkins trade to Arizona for David Johnson. And then various other trades that have happened. I want to say he gave up Jadeveon Clowney for Barkevious Mingo and someone else to the Seahawks 2 years ago, or at the beginning of last season in 2019. And then let's see, he also traded Laramie Tunsil for, I believe, he traded away a first and a second to get Laramie Tunsil from Miami. And so the Houston Texans are 0-4 without a real true number one wide receiver. And they don't have a first or second round pick in the 2021 draft. Those two picks belong to Miami. That hurts. So moving forward, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the offense. As of right now, Romeo Crennel has been named the interim coach. Crennel obviously is the defensive coordinator, one-time coach of the Cleveland Browns. Another guy that's from like Bill O'Brien, another guy that's from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. So again, I don't know what to say about the offense. It has struggled again because they don't have DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have a real number one. Will Fuller is great. He's good. He's a solid number two. But he can't stay healthy. And his best production was always when DeAndre Hopkins was on the field playing double coverage. So he doesn't have anyone to do that for him right now. So we'll kind of keep an eye on this and figure out what it's going to mean for what it's going to mean for Deshaun Watson, what it's going to mean for the wide receivers. I don't think it's going to matter much. I mean, the defense is the defense, and Romeo Crennel's still in charge of that. So, but obviously they're going to need to get. It'll be interesting to see who they get in for a GM, what they're able to do. It could be that they're trading players for picks this offseason. I don't know what they can get for some of these guys. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here on. And obviously the fantasy outlook, like you said, the fantasy outlook isn't necessarily great, but I don't think that the fantasy outlook gets worse as of right now for this offense. It's been rough sledding, and so we'll see we'll kind of watch what happens, and as we're watching, we'll kind of give you guys notes on what we think. So. Or what I think. Moving on to story number 2. This is basically a lot of injury updates. Austin Eckler has been told he has a grade 2 hamstring strain, so he's going to be out several weeks. So obviously he is going to go to IR. He's obviously going to miss a minimum of 3 weeks. So, we'll touch on this in the waiver wire section. I've got a team, I kid you not, that now is going to have McCaffrey and Eckler on IR. I already lost Dallas Goedert to IR. I only have 2 IR spots, so I'm probably going to have to just drop Goddard and kind of wait and see, because Christian McCaffrey has at least one more week, and I need some help in the running back position. I was deep at running back at one point because I had Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, I want to say Chris Carson and David Johnson. Having David Johnson as your 4th running back is nice. Having him then become your number 2, not so much. So, especially when you drafted running back heavy. So that's what's going on with Eckler. Obviously, it's going to mean that that they're bringing up Justin Jackson. So we'll see how that's going to work out with the offense for the running backs, since Josh Kelly hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. Been struggling with some fumbles, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that. Nick Chubb is to go on IR. He will miss a minimum of 3 weeks with an MCL injury. I have not seen if it's a tear or not. I'm sorry if that seems completely uninformed. Just letting you know. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I know it's an MCL. I don't know if it's a little bit of a tear or if it's just a severe enough strain that they want to give it enough time to heal up. So that means Kareem Hunt is going to take over that backfield. Kareem Hunt could, again, he has shown a lot in the last, couple seasons with the Browns. I think he continues to do that. I think he can be a top 5 running back from here on, or at least in the time that he is the only guy while Chubb is on IR. So if Hunt keeps it going, they're not going to push, I don't think, to get Chubb back. So McCaffrey is out at least one more week, so he is still going to be on IR in terms of fantasy. And Julio Jones re-injured his hammy tonight. And Calvin Ridley, I think, did he actually get skunked? I missed the last little bit of the game, so I'm not sure if Ridley actually got skunked or not. He was being skunked through like 3.5 quarters, like 5 or 6 targets and no catches. So we shall see. And then, okay, so that's it for the injuries. Big positive news. That's a negative, or big negative news. That's a positive. How's that? There were 0 positive tests Monday morning for the Titans, so there's still a chance for them to play Week 5 against Buffalo. This is good news for them to try to get their facilities back open to begin practicing again. So again, it's going to take continued negative tests for the entire team moving forward. So in other headlines, Coach Flores of Miami presumes that Fitzpatrick will start Week 5, so there still will be no Tua Tagovailoa moving forward for now. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm sure, is going to eventually get benched for Tua, because this team's the Miami Dolphins are going to need to see what they've got in him. So, okay, so before we get into the waiver wire pickups, because he's going to be part of the waiver wire pickups. That's just what's going to happen. But I figured I might as well just talk about it now. And you guys will probably guess from the intro, from what talking in the beginning, guy that goes off tonight, Robert Tonyan. And I was right. That if Devontae Adams, you can check this in live streams that I've done, possibly even in previous episodes, that I said if Devontae Adams missed with Lazard already out and it just being MVS as the main wide receiver at that point, if Devontae Adams was held out of the game tonight, Robert Tonyan was going to have a very good game. Now, I'm not going to predict 3 touchdowns. That's just I'm not going to do that. However, I figured he could get at least 1 because he was he's the big body target left in that offense in the passing game. And what do you know? He gets 3 tonight. He now has 5 in the last 3 games, which is the same amount of touchdowns that Jimmy Graham had over 2 years with the Packers. Now, everyone's going to rush out to try to get Robert Tonyan, and I'm not surprised. But I want to put out a little bit of a warning because of that. Devontae Adams how many games has Devontae Adams actually missed so far? Let me see. He's missed at least these 2. So he missed half of Week 2 and then missed Week 3 and Week 4 after having 17 targets in Week 1. I'm going to pull up Robert Tonyan now and the tight ends and just the amount of targets that they have had. Robert Tonyan, see if I can even find him. Because he has not had a ton of targets, but he's done a lot with them. Robert Tonyan. Oh, it doesn't have tonight's targets on there. I'm not sure. So he had 3 in Week 2, 5 in Week 3. And that 5 targets, I believe he went 5 for 5 for 50 yards and a touchdown. And then Robert Tonyan tonight, let me pull it up. Robert Tonyan goes off, has 3 there we go. Has 3 touchdowns. Scores 30.8 points, 6 of 6 for 98 and 3. So Week 2, he goes 2 receptions on 3 targets, 25 yards and a touchdown. I believe all of that was after Devontae Adams goes out with a hamstring injury. Adams misses the next 2 games. And the only big body target he's got is Robert Tonyan. So he goes 5 for 5 for 50 and a touchdown in Week 3 against New Orleans, who was horrible against tight ends, by the way. And then you've got them going up against Atlanta, who's another team that's terrible against tight ends. Now, he's going into a bye week. And I know that people don't want to miss out on guys. But hear me out. With one more week of Davante Adams out to get ready and get healthy, to get that hamstring right, when Davante Adams comes back, call me a pessimist. Okay? Do it. Fine. I don't see Robert Tonyan continuing anywhere close to, I mean, forget the amount of touchdowns, the amount of targets. He's had 14 over the last 3 games. Now I get 5 targets a game. I think he goes back down to 3 targets a game once Davante Adams is back, because Davante Adams is the guy for Aaron Rodgers. You know, when Jimmy Graham went to the Packers, I said 2 years ago when he went to the Packers, this was not a good move for Jimmy Graham. It's not going to be Jimmy Graham is not going to become a fantasy star again. It's not going to happen in Green Bay because Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw to tight ends. He had Martellus Bennett hardly ever threw to him. And I can't even remember the last guy that was really a big tight end target regularly for Aaron Rodgers. Richard Rodgers was hyped, was going to be the next big tight end for Green Bay, and it didn't happen. God, I'm trying to remember the tight end from a few years ago. I want to say it was like 2013. It was kind of the end of his career because of a neck injury. Let's see, I'm pulling it up. Their tight end, Andrew Quarles, Richard Rodgers, Martellus Bennett, Jimmy Graham, Mercedes Lewis, Jermichael Finley in 2012. And even then, it was Donald Lee for years, and Donald Lee wasn't, Donald Lee and Torrey Humphrey. Bubba Franks. And Jermichael Finley, he had what? A total of 223 receptions. So really his best 2 years, 2011, 2012. 55, 767, and 8, which was his best year in 2011. And then in 2012, 61 receptions for 667 and only 2 touchdowns. And then in 2013, he gets injured. I want to say game 5, game 6, playing wide receiver because they'd had so many injuries. That was the year that Jordy Nelson went out with an ACL. So that was the last time I remember a tight end really being explosive for the Green Bay Packers. 2012. That's 8 years ago. I'm not expecting this to continue with Robert Tonyan. If it does, you can call me wrong. You can post this everywhere and say this guy's an idiot. I'm looking at history here. I just don't see it. Now again, as if Davante Adams keeps missing games, yes, Robert Tonyan most likely is going to be the biggest benefactor of that. But when Davante Adams comes back, watch. I can see Robert Tonyan's production taking a drastic hit. So, there. Now that I've pontificated for the last 8 minutes on Robert Tonyan, let's go ahead and get into the Waiver-Wire Madness. I hope you guys don't mind me ranting a little bit here and there. So let's go ahead and get into our Waiver-Wire pickups.
Waiver-Wire Madness.
All right, our waiver wire pickups brought to you by Fantasy Pros. Fantasy Pros, there are so many tools that you can use on fantasypros.com. It's where we use our rankings. I am part of their. You can go to their expert consensus rankings, which I am a part of. My rankings get kind of put into there, and as part of the computations, I actually get graded somewhat on my rankings based on the accuracy due to points scored. So right now I believe I'm 29th overall out of about 170 experts. Had a good week last week, finished 21st. I'm not so sure that's going to happen this week. I know there was a lot of injuries, but there were just a lot of guys that I not necessarily was betting on. There were guys I was betting against that did well. So probably going to take a little bit of a hit in the rankings this week, but hopefully I'll do a little bit better for you guys this next week. So again, so many tools to use on fantasypros.com. Targets, how many targets guys are getting per game, average per game. Fantasy points allowed for defenses, another big tool that I use to help with my rankings. So again, go to fantasypros.com, check them out. We love them here at SkullKing. An awesome tool to use to help with your fantasy football research. So, all right, starting with the QBs. In terms of guys to pick up, again, these are all owned in the consensus 50% of leagues or less for ESPN and Yahoo combined. So they may be owned a little bit. I mean, it may be under 50% on Yahoo or maybe under 50% on ESPN, but it's enough of a back and forth that maybe some guys are not listed here. So, but of listed on Fantasy Pros, the quarterbacks are Phillip Rivers has a good matchup against Cleveland, who just gave up a ton of points to Dallas. The Cleveland Browns now give up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks, the third most to wide receivers, and the fourth most to tight ends. So I'm really liking Mo Alley Cox this next week. I can see an argument for Zach Pascal to be up in the rankings a little bit, and it could be a very good day for Phillip Rivers. So let's see. Next, Teddy Bridgewater going against Atlanta. And we know just how bad Atlanta has been. Third most points to quarterbacks. Give up a lot to the tight ends. Tonight didn't help their cause. But Atlanta has been pretty tough against running backs overall. So, this could be a decent game for DJ Moore and for Robbie Anderson, who's played pretty well this season so far. Kirk Cousins, obviously, he's going to be an obvious pick. Seattle gives up the most fantasy points to the quarterbacks. They give up the most to the wide receivers, and they give up the fifth least amount of points to running backs. So Dalvin Cook may be in for a little bit of a tough matchup. Cousins hasn't hardly used the tight ends, and the Seahawks are sixth best against tight ends. So this is going to come down to the Seahawks secondary against Cousins, Thielen, and Justin Jefferson. So Jefferson could be in for another big week again this week. And I know that there are people, I actually had someone ask, should I play Justin Jefferson or Julio Jones? As far as we knew, Julio Jones was healthy and was going to play tonight. Obviously, Justin Jefferson outscored him. Justin Jefferson is showing to be the guy. I wasn't going to say, oh, yeah, start Justin Jefferson after 1 week against a crappy defense like the Houston Texans. But now we have to start giving merit to guys like Justin Jefferson. So Cousins is another guy that you could pick up if you need a bye week starter. Say you've got who all is on. I don't even know who all is on bye week this week. I know that Aaron Rodgers is. So Cousins is a guy you could possibly pick up. The last guy, Justin Herbert, going up against New Orleans. New Orleans has been again, they've been giving up a bit to the quarterback position. So it is an away game for Herbert, but he has been playing very well, throwing for over 300 yards. And as long as Tyrod Taylor is not healthy, they have to keep throwing Justin Herbert out there, and he's been playing well in the process. So, Moving to running backs. My number one running back is Damian Harris. I'd have to look to see what exactly he did tonight. But he definitely looked explosive. Sonny Michel is now on. They've moved him to IR with a quad injury, I believe, is what they're calling it. And so with him gone, Damian Harris becomes the de facto starter in terms of running backs for that team. Let me pull up Harris's stats for tonight. 17 carries for 100 yards. So he had 100 yards rushing in the game tonight against a team that is very tough against running backs. Going into, KC is top 7, top 8 against running backs in terms of giving up fantasy points, and he puts up 100 yards against them. So he is definitely going to be the bruiser running back in that offense. So Justin Jackson's another one. Again, I really don't know what to think of the running back situation if Eckler's not there. I liked kind of the lightning and thunder-ish aspect of Eckler and Kelly. I don't necessarily like Kelly and Jackson. If you're desperate, yeah, you can pick up Jackson. I would prefer, me honestly, to go with Chase Edmonds, who goes up against the New York Jets next week. Chase Edmonds has more targets than Kenyon Drake. I believe he's out targeting him 17-5. Kenyon Drake went out this last game with a chest injury. Seems like he's going to be fine, playing well, but in terms of health, but not playing well. And so I really think we could see a change like they did last year, going from David Johnson to Kenyon Drake. So I think that Chase Edmonds could be a guy that could really break out a little bit towards the second half of the season. The last one, this one's more of a safety net, is D'Ernest Johnson, running back for the Browns, going up against Indy. Really, he's kind of just a backup to Hunt at this point. So as far as wide receivers go, Laviska Shenault going up against Houston. With DJ Chark there, I think that Laviska Shenault provides a solid number 2 option in the offense, and I think he's better as a number 2 guy. So I think that he is definitely a guy that could provide possible flex consideration depending on the matchup. Mecole Hardman going up against Las Vegas. Hardman, I believe, had another touchdown tonight. He and Sammy Watkins, I think he's better than Sammy Watkins, personally. But he has shown to make mistakes as a younger player. I believe this is his second year. So I think that as he gets more confidence, I think that the Chiefs can use him more, and I think that he will. I think that he can, by the end of the year, pass up Watkins. So that's my thought. And Watkins had another fumble tonight. So next is T. Higgins. The matchup against Baltimore isn't great, but moving forward, I think the connection between Higgins and Burrow is showing. Higgins had like another 70 yards receiving on, I want to say, 4 receptions this last week. So definitely a guy that in PPR leagues especially is going to provide a little bit of value in deeper, 12 to 14 team leagues if you need a flex player. T. Higgins is definitely a guy that can provide that. And Baltimore did just give up, 110 receiving yards to Terry McLaurin this last week. So, something to watch. And then Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith, great game. My only thing with Traquan Smith is once Michael Thomas is back officially, Traquan Smith disappears. I believe that's the case. So that's where I'm going with that. So moving on to the tight ends, and then we'll finish this up. Number one, obviously, I mentioned Robert Tonyan. I pontificated about him. He's on a bye week, but if you have the room to pick him up to stash him, go ahead. Number 2 for me is Mo Alley-Cox. Again, going up against the Cleveland defense. Mo Alley-Cox, I believe he's got 2 or 3 weeks in a row with the touchdown. He only had the 1 reception for 19 yards and a touchdown this last week, but he is getting targeted by Phillip Rivers. He is earning his trust. And Mo Alley-Cox is showing he is athletic enough to get it done. Last week they were playing a tougher defense in the Chicago Bears. So this week, going up against Cleveland, who gives up the fourth most amount of fantasy points to tight ends, I think the Mo Alley-Cox could find himself in the end zone. Or he could find himself with 5 catches for another 80 yards. Even if it's that is more than enough to compensate for someone who is either on bye or a guy that, is struggling and isn't getting it done. So, last one, Cameron Brate with the O.J. Howard news, and I have not seen officially if O.J. Howard is going on IR. I think everyone just assumed it when they said it was most likely an Achilles injury. Cameron Brate is a guy to pick up. He did have a touchdown this last game. And if O.J. Howard is out and it's between Cameron Brate and Rob Gronkowski, Brate is the more athletic by far. And so I like Cameron Brate to more likely get in the end zone than Rob Gronkowski. But, I think they're going to be about even for the most part in terms of playing them during the week. So, all right, that is it for the Waiver-Wire show, for our Waiver-Wire Madness. I want to thank you guys again for taking the time to listen to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. We will be back tomorrow to kind of, I think tomorrow we'll kind of give a first quarter review of the season and kind of what some things to look forward to for the rest of the season. So, with that said, again, my name is Ryan Sculler. This has been the SkullKing Sports Fantasy Football Podcast, and we'll talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation, thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.